Lines are set, the odds are high. Every bet a test who will survive. Chasing stacks, outlast the crowd. Only the strongest left now. Who's ready to win? This is more than gambling. Let's start the show. It's last man standing. Lines are set, the odds are high. Every bet a test who will survive. Chasing stacks, outlast the crowd. Only the strongest left now. Who's ready to win? This is more than gambling. Let's start the show. It's last man standing.
Oh, that hook gets me every time. You know what time it is. Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Jason Anik here with my brother, Tony Farmer. We are the Last Men Standing podcast. And as we sit here on our regular slot Wednesday night, 3 short weeks away, Tony, from the opening of the National Football League season, I'm jumping out of my skin. How are you, my brother?
I'm feeling good. You've heard me say this many times before, Jason, but that Sunday of week 1 of the NFL season is my favorite day of the year. Better than Christmas, better than my birthday, better than any Super Bowl, sports, holiday, etc. I cannot wait. It's all I can think about right now. And that would be without Circa Survivor. Then you add in the layer of Circa Survivor on top of it, and it's just electric. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what Circa looks like with that energy running through it, not just on Sunday, but how about Saturday as we creep up to the deadline and everybody wants to find out what's the final number, what's the final dollar amount that's going to be in this pool, you know?
We talk about the total nut, if you will, what this number is going to get to. Last season was 18.7 million. So I guess that's a great way to begin the program, Tony. I ask you every week sort of what's your over under. 23.5 million. I said last week you were going over. It's on pace for 23 million. So your thoughts, Mr. Farmer?
I'm going to say 24.5 is my new prediction. I will say this from a proxy standpoint. I've had this coming Saturday is going to be Last Men Proxy's busiest day from proxy.
Let's
I'm
go.
expecting, just based off of that, anecdotally, I'm expecting these numbers to really bump up this weekend. And then, as you know, because you're going to be there, we've got Ultimate Contest weekend after that, which is just a mad rush of people signing up. And then it's just September is just bonkers. So yeah, I think 24.5 makes a lot of sense. I'm excited about it. But Jason, I want to tell you a story. As I was at Circa earlier today and saw the big screen, we have officially passed 10,000 now. We've hit that number.
Amazing.
I met a guy who I signed up for Last Men Proxy, and his story was really cool. He's from Pennsylvania. And Mike, you got a picture of him if you want to pull it up, that link that I sent you. But he's from Pennsylvania, and he was kind of an Atlantic City guy. When he wanted to gamble, he'd go to Atlantic City. He hadn't been to Las Vegas in more than 20 years.
Wow.
Doesn't even know about Circa Survivor as of a month ago. He sees randomly one of our tweets from our Last Men Pod account. He learns about Circa Survivor on the fly from us. He pulls up his phone. Hey, guys, $1,000 entry. Starts texting group chat with his friends. I'm in. A month later, he's in Las Vegas signing up for Circa Survivor. And it gives me goosebumps because this contest has given me so much joy. So to know that you and I are the reason he's going to be going for the ride of his life in a couple weeks just feels so good, and it fulfills me, man. I'm excited to see how he does.
I love it. So you mentioned the Ultimate Contest weekend, right? So we talk about the season beginning 3 weeks from tonight. And by the way, the Patriots, I'm a Patriots fan for those who don't know, they're going to go up to the Pacific Northwest and spoil the Seahawks banner raising ceremony. But 1 week from tonight, Mike Jones and I fly to Las Vegas to be with you for that weekend. I'm anticipating this weekend really as excitedly as any weekend I've anticipated in a long time. It'll be a different experience for us, Tony, than it was last year at this Radio Row.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last year, not many people knew who we were. A lot of people knew who you were because you got that familiar voice. You got the John Anik look. People know you. People this year, it's going to be different. People are really fans of the show. Our show has grown so much, Jason. I remember doing a show with you in Radio Row. And for people who don't know, Radio Row is when Jason and I did our first episodes.
Right.
In other words, this point last year, we had 0 episodes. And now we've got thousands of views at this point now leading into the season. Excited about our momentum and excited to kind of funnel people into Circa Survivor.
Captain the Cleveland Browns this season. What are your thoughts? What do you expect for this team week 1 and overall?
Yeah, I want to take a little bit of a wait and see approach with the Browns. I think about them in terms of a matchup team, in terms of they've got a good defensive line. And if they go up against a team with a really bad offensive line, like a good team, an above average team that struggles with its offensive line, like Seattle. I don't know if they play Seattle this year, but you get my point. A team like that, I think that they could cause some trouble.
Unbelievable.
By the way, we pulled that clip up to show you how far we've come and what our old set used to look like, but not to pat myself on the back, but those words were prophetic. Because remember, the Cleveland Browns upset the Green Bay Packers last year when the Packers had some trouble on their offensive line. And so I think I nailed that prediction. But this show has come such a long way. And I've had so many people, Jason, reach out, I'm sure you have too, and say, can't wait to meet you guys for Ultimate Contest Weekend. Looking forward to being there. Can't wait to shake your hand. Can't wait to meet Jason. Can't wait to meet Mike, that sort of stuff. So I'm really, really stoked about it. Can't wait.
And once we were there and sort of getting our feet wet with this show, it became very clear to me that we needed our guy, Mike Jones, in the back. Certainly, Mike has helped us elevate this program, you can be sure. It feels so long ago, Tony. It was just a year ago that we were sitting there, and I was still so green in terms of this contest. I feel like I've come a long way. And Tony, you have come a very long way. No matter where I go now, you talk about my brother John, everybody knows the name Tony Farmer, you can be sure. And what you have done in terms of this NFL offseason is absolutely tremendous. And I can't wait to see how this impacts our audience, because I do think we're going to get a nice bump with our audience from your profile that's grown.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I had like 6,000 followers on Twitter when we started this last year, maybe even a little bit less, and we're up over, close to 24,000 now. So my following quadrupled in size since last year. A lot of that has come this summer. So you're right. I mean, when we're streaming this show out to, my Twitter account, your Twitter account, the Last Man Pod Twitter account, and on YouTube, and getting hits on Spotify, Apple, etc. It's exciting, man. And I'm getting a little nostalgic with Ultimate Contest Weekend coming up, just thinking about how far we've come. I mean, you saw the set that Mike showed. It wasn't pretty. The colors are pretty, not too easy on the eyes. And now we got this set that kind of has ESPN vibes. So anyways, I'm stoked about it.
I just want to put this up real quick from Pete. 23 seems low, and you probably like seeing this, Tony. There's much more hype than last year. I think it'll push up towards 27. Interesting take from our guy, Pete Sampson.
Pete, believe me, I'm rooting for it. I hope you're right. I think part of the reason that I set mine like around 24.5 is because I was a little over last year. And I'm like, you know what? I got some bias. I want there to be a lot of people in this contest. So maybe I do have, I end up a little bit over. So I'm trying to scale back and be a little bit more conservative. But would I be shocked if it was 27? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be shocked if it was 27 million. I think that's at least in the conversation. It means that the people behind the counter at Circa are going to be real busy the next couple of weeks doing signups, but we'll see how it goes for sure.
Tony Football Farmer. I like that nickname too. Stevie Pan. Tony, it's so funny just seeing this graphic, 20 million guarantee. You think Benson and Stevens over that? No problem. They're not sweating that even slightly, that $20 million. Seems like a slam dunk halfway there on August 19th.
Yeah, that's a foregone conclusion. Sorry, players, there will be no overlay, but you still want to get in this thing because it's the best contest in town. I'm excited to see what that number ends up at. And I'm telling you, it's cool being there, as I said, on Saturday, because, this time of year, Circa updates that board maybe 2 times a day, something like that, maybe 3, I don't know. But on Saturday, they're really good at keeping it going. And I love just sitting there, just looking over my shoulder every once in a while and watching the numbers go up.
Real quickly, I know you don't love when I do this, but I got to talk about the Last Men Proxy very quickly, right? For those that want to get into this contest, you got to get out to Vegas within the next 3 weeks. Tony's your guy. And Tony, I want you to talk quickly about the proxy, but for you, it's got to be so exciting to be there with a purpose this year as it leads up as a proxy. You talk about this weekend,
Yeah, for sure. It's been fun. Let me tell you a story real quick, Jason. We had a guy sign up, Trevor was his name. And I noticed his area code was my Connecticut area code where I grew up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, where are you from in Connecticut? And every time I ask that question, it's always the western side of the state. It's always like, Greenwich or something like that. It's never from my side of the state. And he says, I'm from Thompson. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I used to write for the Norwich Bulletin. I covered Thompson football games when I was in Connecticut. He's like, no way. What years? I told him the years. Jason, he was on the team.
Ha!
Me and this guy were on the sideline at the same time 20 odd years ago. I just thought that was so cool. And yeah, it's been fun to meet people this summer for sure.
I love it. So if they want to sign up for the proxy real quick, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. At Last Men Proxy on Twitter. And then, of course, PBJ Survivor. You can sign up that way as well. Either of those are appropriate. And the payments can be done through credit card or cash. $95 an entry. Give you a little discount potentially if you got enough entries. We are the only proxy service that advertises a strict no tips policy. That means more money in your pocket if you win this thing. And I don't know how many other proxies do this, but I think we're one of the few, maybe the only one, don't quote me on that, who will send you a photo of your picks before the Circa deadline so you can have a little peace of mind. You also get 20% off Survivor Atlas. And the last thing I'll say is if your Survivor entry ends in overtime, heartbreaking fashion in OT, we will protect you and have your fees waived for the following season when you sign up at Last Men Proxy. So appreciate, Jason, the opportunity to drop a little plug there.
100%. Can't wait to see you 1 week from tonight, Mr. Farmer. All right. Before we get into the meat of our program tonight, a few words from our friends at Player Options. Attention racing fans. If you want to win consistently at the track, you have to stop chasing favorites and start finding true value. That's where Market Edge by Player Options Racing comes in. Market Edge delivers data-driven research built for a profitable, disciplined approach. First, the model does the heavy lifting, screening historical track data to lock in qualified horses before the gates open. Next, you wait for the market, because a horse only becomes an official play if the final track odds give you a clear pricing edge. Build a winning strategy that actually lasts. Head over to playeroptions.ai/racing and find your edge today.
We appreciate
Tony, I
the
feel
folks over at Player Options for sure.
Yes, we do. You know, I just feel so different than I did a year ago in so many ways. And, you know, last year I didn't make it to Thanksgiving. We talk all about in this contest, it's 18 weeks, but really it's 20 weeks because of the 2 holidays. Well, I didn't even make it to November last season. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to make it further this year with more entries, etc. But all the players in this Circa Survivor Pro Football Contest have their own approach. Mapping is a huge part of this process for most of us. So I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of the mapping process. So let's get into a little meat on this tonight, Mr. Farmer.
Yeah, for sure. You know, so far we've talked on this show about, and Mike, if you want to pull up the Survivor Atlas map, that'd be helpful. But we've talked about how you can go through individually and click the weeks, and then the games with the biggest point spreads will go to the top. The biggest favorites will go to the top. And you can kind of scout out, like, what's the scariest week? Oh, week 7, there's not a lot of big favorites. So maybe you want to start there. You want to start with the gnarliest weeks. That's one way to approach it that we've talked about. We've also talked about just going straight down the line. Start with week 1. Who do you want week 1? Oh, you like them? Okay. Who do you want week 2? You can kind of go about it that way. I want to introduce to you, Jason, and I'm not sure if you've thought of this before. I know it's something I've never talked about on the show. Sort of a different approach altogether to building your map, and I think that you'll appreciate it. So instead of starting with the Survivor Atlas grid and looking at these weeks, what if we start with a team? What if you take all 32 teams in the NFL and you put them into different buckets? You got teams like the Rams. Jason, you know you're going to use the Rams at some point if you're going to go 20-0, no doubt, right? Then you probably got some teams like the Dolphins, the Cardinals, that we can put in that third bucket of we're probably not going to use them. And then there's that middle bucket that's like, I'll probably use them, but not 100% sure. And what I want to ask people out there to do is look at those teams in the middle bucket, pull up their schedule. Mike, you can do it now if you don't mind. Let's look at like the Minnesota Vikings, for instance. Pull up their schedule. And Jason, I want to ask you, forget about the map for a second. If you're just looking at the Vikings, what is the best spot that you see for the Vikings on this schedule?
So, Mike, if you scroll back up, I mean, hard to look past week 4 with the Miami Dolphins. And despite how high I may be on Malik Willis, gosh, it feels like I'm on an island here. It feels as though a lot of people really do believe this Dolphins team could be the bottom of the National Football League. So hard really to look past week 4. But what's interesting, Tony, is as I look at my map for these 20 weeks, I didn't use the Vikings at all in my map, right? And, so maybe that was when I did my map back in the day, and I do refresh this thing every week or so, but perhaps it had to do with my feelings about the Dolphins a little bit, and maybe week 4 a little bit unknown, but hard for me to imagine that I wouldn't use them week 4. What my team penciled into week 4 is the Bears hosting the Jets. So pretty similar game, those divisions facing off against one another, bottom feeders. But, it's interesting on Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio and Chris Sims were talking about, and I think Michael Hawley the previous week, talking about which team do you think will be worse, the Jets or the Dolphins in the AFC East, right? Certainly going to be the 2 worst teams. And seems like the majority of folks think it's going to be the Dolphins. I'm not so sure I agree there, but really not too many spots jump out at me other than that week 4 for the Vikings versus Miami.
I love that you said you built your map and you haven't used the Vikings, because this is the whole point of me bringing this up, because it lets you see things from another perspective. It lets you see this opportunity that you may have missed or overlooked, et cetera. So Mike, what I heard Jason say is that the best opportunity for the Vikings to get a win, and I agree with him, is at home week 4 against the Dolphins. So why don't we go ahead and pull up that Survivor Atlas map and go ahead and plug the Vikings in week 4 against the Dolphins. You see how we're doing this a little bit differently?
I like it.
We're finding the best opportunities by team and plugging those into the map. Now, we can just do this as a starting point. I'm not saying you have to do this for all 18 weeks plus the holidays. You can start with 5 or 6 of these and then build the map however you want. But let's go ahead and do another one. Mike, if we can pull up.
Real quick, Tony, I just want to pull up one comment here from one of our viewers. So, Jeff, when you talk about, and it's a good point, he says start with the holidays, Vikings week 17 against the Jets. Tony, just address a little bit how you feel about week 17 and 18, if you will, because that's down the road for guys like me that have never gotten close to there.
Yeah, so let me do a couple differentiations here. This is going to be completely different if we're talking Grandissimo versus the normal contest. Grandissimo, there's going to be way less emphasis on those last games. Now, holidays aside, because Christmas is really late this season, holidays aside, I don't consider week 18 when I'm building my map. And I de-emphasize week 17 big time when I'm building my map. One, because it's so much further away. We don't know what's going to happen between now and then, injuries, etc. Yes, that's true for every week, but it's especially true for those weeks at the end of the season. And the whole tanking factor. We don't know which teams are going to be tanking at the end of the season. And we also don't know which teams are going to be resting starters because they already have things locked up. So not a bad idea, Jeff. I don't want to steer you off of that, but I would just invite you to consider maybe de-emphasizing those weeks at the end of the season.
And, that's a game at the Jets. The Jets roster is better than it was last season. And I think, Breece Hall a little banged up, probably not going to be banged up by week 17. So the Jets could be sort of turning the corner perhaps at that point. I love that you put this up. Our girl, Morgan Miller, how much you guys look ahead stresses me out. Holiday looks ahead only for me. Morgan Miller is a very successful player in this game. And unless I'm mistaken, not a huge mapper, right? Survive and advance is her motto, and she's done quite well.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of Circa Survivor, is that it's different strokes for different folks. And we've all got different approaches to this thing. And there's not one way to be successful. That's the beauty of it. You can find a new way to build a map, and then you have success with that. But let's keep going with our exercise here. So we've got the Vikings penciled in for week 4. Mike, can you pull up the Steelers schedule? And Jason, I'm going to ask you that same question. Who do you think is the softest spot on this Steelers schedule?
I really don't believe in this football team this season. As I look at this glance here, week 7, October 25th, home to New Orleans. London is calling that week. I do believe the Steelers potentially could still be playing decent football at that point. I don't believe in them late in the season, but I couldn't find a lot of spots for this team other than that spot in London. Certainly that following week versus Cleveland. Cleveland remains really a wild card for me. Some are sort of not believers in Cleveland, but I think they could surprise some people this season potentially. So week 7 and 8, potentially there before that bye, week 9.
All right, so for the purposes of this, let's go ahead and say week 7, even though you're not saying that full-heartedly, and I understand that, but just for the purposes of this exercise, Mike, if we can go ahead and put the Steelers in for week 7. And then the third team, the Bucks. And by the way, the reason I chose the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Bucks is because they're in that second bucket that I talked about. They're not a hell yes for me, and they're not a hell no. They're in the maybe bucket. That's why I picked these 3 kind of middling teams.
So I'm going to look at this. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. No. I was just kind of looking at it with you. That's all.
It's really interesting to me that 2 of these teams, and I wasn't really prompted on this exercise here, but the Bucks were another team that I didn't use. Now, I do not believe in the Bucks this season at all. And Mecca Buka's banged up. I know we're going to get into that later. Mike, go back up though. I mean, but week 2, I talk a little bit about out of both sides of my mouth about Cleveland, but I don't expect the Bucks to win week 1, but coming home versus Cleveland week 2 in a bounce back spot, I might potentially like.
Home opener. It's going to be awfully hot in Tampa
Yes,
Bay,
it is.
isn't it? You're our Florida weather expert over there, Jason. I think it's
100%.
going to be a very hot and humid day for those Browns who are going to be playing 2 games in a row in the hot.
You can go down, Mike. You can keep going down. Sorry to cut you off, Tony, but you can just scroll down a little bit, Mike. I just want to see if there's anything sort of at the back of the schedule that might appeal to me a little bit more. Some of those division games, versus the Panthers on November 30th, a little bit of a wild card. But yeah, I mean, I guess the reason Tampa's not in my map is because I'm probably afraid to use them week 2, given that I don't believe in them long term. But that may be the best spot.
Fair enough. So let's go ahead, Mike, and pencil them in for week 2. Again, this map that we're building doesn't necessarily have mine or Jason's blessings on it. We're just using this as an example to show you how you can build a map. So yeah, zoom out perfectly. Now we've got these 3, and maybe you throw a couple other middling teams in there that you're not sold on but aren't in your no bucket. You throw a few more of those on there, and then you start building your map around this core that you've built based on the best opportunities for these individual teams. So I'm not saying this is the way to build a map. I'm saying it's another way to build a map that you may not have considered. And yeah, chew on it. And if it's for you, give it a shot.
You've given us a lot of good insight this off season, and this may be one of my favorite exercises. We've certainly looked at the winners from last year and some of their tendencies, but this is really interesting for me, especially given the fact that 2 of the 3 teams you selected were not on my map, yet I do see some spots for them. It also points to the fact that your map's got to change, right? You got to be evolving these things as the season approaches, because as you know, with injuries and different things and opinions, this thing is a running train right now, the National Football League. So
yeah, well said. And I do want to plug our friends over at Survivor Atlas real quick. We use their map because there's no better map on the internet, in my opinion. I feel very strongly about that. They've got tools that allow you to designate which are Thursday night games, and it's just the best tool. So definitely check out Survivor Atlas, and they've got other tools besides this map as well. Jason, how closely have you been following preseason football? We've got some injuries now. We got some signings going on. How closely are you following the NFL offseason news at the moment?
So I was in Philadelphia last weekend for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC 330. So that got in the way a little bit. I will follow it more and more as the preseason goes along. But Tony, so I didn't watch a lot of it, but what I will say is even some of your points about preseason snaps for quarterbacks, paying attention to some of these things, that's been on my radar, a little less than watching it, but sort of looking at snap counts, looking to see who's getting the action. But I'd be lying to you if I took a real close look at the first week.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I think the Browns game was the game that I was interested in most, because I wanted to see how Deshaun Watson looked. I wanted to see how Shedeur Sanders looked. And by the way, I think the answer to that is Watson looked okay. His numbers looked good, but there were no like miraculous throws. So I don't think we learned a ton. I don't know about you, Jason. I feel like a good quarterback performance in the preseason isn't necessarily a good thing, but a bad quarterback performance in the preseason probably could be a warning sign, because these defenses are very vanilla. They're not seeing exotic blitzes and stuff like that. So if you struggle against the vanilla, and I get it, the offense isn't using their best plays either, but still, you struggle against the vanilla, that's a little red flag for me, an orange flag. But you have a good game like Deshaun Watson did, it doesn't necessarily make me a believer.
Just how about Sean McVay out in LA, right? Ty Simpson, what was he, 21 for 25, lighting it up when the one dude sort of slipped a little bit in the draft, or they went up and got him, but clearly gonna be the backup this season. But Rams may have their guy of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, what we see here on the screen is we've got 6 names, and there's more, by the way. The font's getting pretty small. We didn't want to squeeze too many on there. Injuries that could affect these NFL teams and certainly could affect Circa Survivor. We got a suspension up there too, James Pierce. So not just injuries, but I'm curious, which of these names jump out to you that give you second thought as you're building your map, or you think could impact the Circa Survivor season?
So number one on my list has to be Tyler Biadasz with the Chargers and the offensive line. Last season, the Chargers offensive line completely decimated. Rashawn Slater missed the entire year with the ruptured patellar tendon. Joe Alt missed 11 games there, outstanding right tackle. And then they sign a center. And I know sometimes the center position can be undervalued, right? But so Biadasz does 4 years with Dallas, 2 years with the Commanders, and then signs a 3-year, $30 million deal and is not going to play a snap. And for an offensive line that was so bad last season, and despite that, the Chargers still made the postseason, it's just unbelievable turn of events. So that's the one that jumps out off the page for me the most. But overall, I will tell you, all these, Breece Hall ready for week 1. I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? With the groin. So, but the Biadasz is the one that jumps out at me. But you see some of these stacking up. Jordan Tyson, Alvin Kamara, both for the Saints. So, oftentimes when guys get injured right now, it's everywhere you look. It says Breece Hall be fully ready for week 1. I'm not so sure. But to see the Chargers have an offensive line injury before the season begins, just unbelievable to me.
And a serious one. And remember, we're expecting the Chargers to be the chalk week 1,
right,
against the Arizona Cardinals in Circa Survivor. So I'm not saying that's going to make the line move 3 points or anything like that, but it's not what you want to see if you were planning on taking the Chargers week 1. Now, on the other side of that, we do see Jeremiah Love, the running back for the Cardinals. They're saying he might be back for week 1. Early first-round pick, guy with a lot of talent. I would just say this about the Cardinals running back room. It's really deep. They've got Tyler Algier, James Conner, and Trey Benson. So I don't think losing Jeremiah Love, if he is out week 1, and that's no sure thing, is going to hurt the Cardinals as much as the Chargers losing Biadasz is going to hurt them. And I like your point. I like you bringing him up. Who was it? Somebody on VSiN would always say, it might have been Michael Lombardi. He would always say, never underestimate the impact of a good center.
Right.
And you see Biadasz on this list, and then the last name is Cade Mays, the Lions center. That injury's a little bit older now. It's been a few weeks since that one, but those are certainly 2 things to look at, Jason. I think especially when these teams are on the road, you can mask a bad or a mediocre offensive line at home a little bit, but when that crowd is going nuts, and that can really add a layer and hurt a bad offensive line. So I would especially keep an eye on those 2 teams in their first road games to see how these backups do. So who are we looking at for backups for Biadasz? It's a 2nd-round rookie, Jake Slaughter. Decent college career, but you got a 2nd-round pick. You and I could probably list off a bunch of 2nd-round picks who are Hall of Fame offensive linemen, and we could list a bunch of busts too.
Yep.
And we don't know how this guy's going to do. That's a guy to watch in the preseason. We talk about how preseason isn't that important. I want to know how Jake Slaughter looks in the preseason, because that's the guy. If I'm putting my Circa Survivor life on the line, that's the most important guy on that line suddenly for Herbert as he's dropping back.
And if we look at the defensive side of the ball, Kobe Bryant, right? It says 4 to 6 weeks. That could be longer, and the Bears acquired him, signs a 3-year, $40 million deal. And I do feel as though, Tony, you have great knowledge of a lot of the depth of these rosters at all 3 levels. But there are a lot of casual NFL fans out there that it's all about the offensive players. It's all about fantasy football, right? And I think Kobe Bryant could be a big missing piece for a Bears team that has a lot to prove to be that team that everybody thinks is going to take that next step when they really achieved great success last season.
Yeah, good point. And another Bear is Kyle Monangai, backup running back, but he'll get a few carries. Very talented guy. So a couple names up there for the Bears. The other one that really jumped out at me, James Pierce. That suspension for the Falcons, while not completely unexpected, this guy had 10.5 sacks as a rookie last year. And let's not forget that this is the same Falcons roster that's going to also be without Jalen Walker.
That's
now,
right.
they did just sign Zadarius Smith. You see all these headlines, former Pro Bowler signs with the Falcons. Like, I don't think that's the same guy. He had a 1.5 sacks last season in 5 games for the Eagles. That doesn't impress me much. So I'm interested in this Falcons pass rush. We've seen this Falcons team look really bad without a pass rush. And I get it. It's a new defensive coordinator, etc. But if that Falcons team doesn't have a pass rush and it's going up against a team with a really good offensive line, you might find yourself a Circa Survivor spot early in the season to fade the Atlanta Falcons.
Good stuff there, and quickly just to touch on Monagai, right? It's like DeAndre Swift, right? Can he handle that load, right? I understand that he had a great season last year, explosive, but can he handle that? I'm going to put you on the spot here, though. Your San Francisco 49ers, who were very banged up last season, just seemed like a lot of chips there. How healthy is Mike Evans? How healthy is Christian McCaffrey? Pearsall's already gone, right? Starting to get a little long in the tooth out there in San Francisco, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I can't spend too much time on this topic because I'll get fired up and you'll start hearing me
Sorry.
because it's so frustrating being a 49er fan. It's every single season you see these injuries, and then what do? They bring in injury-prone players like Christian Kirk and Mike Evans, and it's like, oh, shocking, people are hurt again. So
right.
It's getting frustrating. I guess if you want any good news for the 49ers, I'm actually hearing that the chances of George Kittle playing week 1 against the Rams is like increasing, and he might actually get on that plane to Australia.
I love it.
So
I love it.
A little bit of good news there, but yeah, it's frustrating for sure. I'm looking at this list too. Igbuka, we'll see if he plays for the Bucks week 1. It's a toe injury for him. Those things can linger, man. I hope he's healthy for the rest of the season.
Yep. And one name not on this list, Jaden Higgins, right? Ruled out for the entire wide receiver for the Texans, ruled out for the entire 2026 season after tearing his ACL during a joint practice, I believe, yesterday, right? So they had Tank Dell, who missed all of last season, right? And I know on August 5th, I guess he started practicing full pads, but 584 days was that how long it had been since August 5th. And so we all love Nico Collins, but if he's getting double teamed, if they don't have that depth out there, CJ Stroud had some shaky moments last season toward the end.
Yeah, good call. And a little plug for our interview later on in this show. Cleave TA, who we talked to, he's really, really bullish on the Texans. He's actually got the Texans in the Super Bowl in the AFC, and you can hear him make his case. Teaser alert, he also really likes the Jets, and he'll tell you why. But to see a team like the Texans, who Cleave TA and others are really high on, lose Higgins, it's a big deal. This guy isn't a household name, Jason, and let me read you his stats. 41 catches, 525 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That doesn't tell the true story of who this guy is and what he means to that offense. You remember, I know you do because it was against the Patriots, the Texans' last game of the season last year. He was their leading receiver. He had 10 targets in that game. There was a week 17 game where he had 88 yards and a touchdown. And so they were expecting a big sophomore jump for him. He was a second-round pick last year. And him going down for the whole season is devastating if you're a Texans fan. Absolutely devastating. That's not what they want to see.
Be interesting to see if Cleave TA feels differently about some of his thoughts on the Texans with that particular injury.
For sure. It'd be good to catch up with him. I mean, I know he like many people, are also in love with that DeMeco Ryans Texans defense too.
Yeah.
And, but I think a lot of people are expecting some improvements from the Texans offense as well. Let's go ahead and roll into a little word from PBJ Survivor.
Don't get caught scrambling for a proxy. Set up your entries at pbjsurvivor.com.
You heard us say it at the top of the show. If you're looking for a proxy service, head on over to pbjsurvivor.com. If you want to sign up for Last Men Proxy, you can also reach out at Last Men Proxy on X. We'd love to hear from you. $95 a proxy, the only proxy service in Las Vegas that advertises a strict no-tip policy. Jason, I alluded to the conversation that I had with Cleave TA a couple days ago. It's pre-recorded. We're going to insert it here into this episode. This was one of our most popular episodes last year when Cleave joined us.
He's the man.
You and I often sort of approach things from a ball knowledge perspective. We'd sprinkle in some analytics here and there, but Cleave lives and breathes analytics, and he's highly respected in the sports betting community in terms of his analytic approach. We had a great conversation with him. I want to make sure and say that his guide that's out right now is tremendous, and it's free. You can find it over at Cleave, Clevta. The poor guy. He gets called Clevta. He gets called Cleave TA. It's Cleave TA. Check out his Twitter account because you can download this guide for free. It is jam packed.
It's unreal. It's unbelievable. So easy to read. And come on, you got to know it's Cleve. It's Cleveland. Come on.
Right. Exactly. And so what we originally wanted to do, Jason, is it was about a 30-minute conversation with Cleve. We wanted to just plug it into this episode. But we had some issues with our platform that we're streaming on, et cetera. So what we're going to do instead, and especially since you weren't able to join Cleve and I for that interview, we're going to show people 3 snippets from the conversation with Cleve. And then as soon as this show is over, refresh your Twitter feed if you're watching on Twitter, or if you're on YouTube, look for the next episode because we're going to show the interview with Cleve in its entirety there on YouTube as well. But Mike, let's go ahead and roll our first clip that we've pulled out here from our conversation with Cleve.
I did post yesterday. Something that people really liked last year was a very cool visual of each of the teams that qualify from a kind of 65% win probability, based on current market ratings for each week and above. And just kind of, it's really good. I'm a visual person, so it's really good to see like where are those big gaps between the largest win probabilities each week and the next. And so week 1 actually qualifies right now with the Chargers being substantially, I think like 10% higher than any other team. Maybe the Jags are second. So that will be interesting to see.
Yeah, that graphic is tremendous, and Cleve will often update that throughout the season because, these point spreads are moving, the win probabilities are moving. So definitely keep an eye out for that. He tweeted that out a couple days ago. If you're a visual person, Jason, I don't know if you are or not. I don't know if you'd consider yourself one, but it's super, super helpful.
And I know you might have already said this, but it's free, right? His preview is free. And a lot of these dudes charging right behind these paywalls everywhere. This is free. This, to me, it's going to be my Bible every season now. And there's so much information out there. And I just think the way he breaks it down is absolutely phenomenal. Is he a big Browns fan, by the way?
Yeah, he's a Cleveland guy for sure.
Did he have any thoughts on the quarterback situation, by the way?
I don't recall. I don't think we got into that, to be honest. I did see him post, though, on Twitter some highlights of Deshaun Watson, and he was essentially saying what I was saying, which was that, like, just because the numbers looked good for Deshaun Watson, there's not really a lot of impressiveness on tape, so don't get too excited that Deshaun Watson's back or something like that. So I do recall that take from him there.
It is interesting, though, and I know we'll move on, but quickly in terms of that quarterback competition, I hear all these Browns fans are going to be so disappointed if Deshaun Watson gets the start, right? They're sort of done with him. They want to see Shedeur Sanders, but I still would love to see what I have. I mean, if my memory serves me correctly, and I know Deshaun Watson hasn't put some very good things on film in recent memory, even when he was healthy, but that dude could do it all. I mean, if I'm a Browns fan, I would like to maybe see it for a couple games and then maybe put that whole experiment to bed. Just one man's opinion.
No, fair enough. And Jason, you said earlier in the show, people are talking about who's worse, the Jets or the Dolphins. Cleve wasn't asked that exact question, but I know he would strongly have a take and say the Jets are better than the Dolphins because I asked him for a team that he thinks people might be sleeping on a little bit and people might be considering as a worse team in the league that's actually not. So, Mike, let's go ahead and play his clip here talking about the Jets. Who is the team to fade this year? A lot of people are saying Cardinals. A lot of people are saying Dolphins. So do you agree that those are sort of the 2 worst teams in the NFL? And can you give us maybe an under-the-radar team that you think people aren't planning on fading, but by the end of the year, we might look back and say, that team was a lot worse than we thought?
Yeah, I think Miami is definitely the worst team. So if I were to pick one, that is clearly the one. I'll say, obviously, everyone's going to say Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are more, I think the talent and the roster is better. Obviously, LaFleur has got some upside as a head coach. Their issue is just the schedule and the division they're playing is brutal. So that's why their win total is really, takes a hit. I do a podcast and we talked about some of the teams. And normally I would never take an under on a win total so low like Arizona's when it was at 4.5. But my case was the only reason I'd even consider it is because their easiest games or easiest opponents are end of the season where they're going to want to lose. They have incentive to lose to get the number one pick. I'll say that the team that I think is going to be underrated is the Jets amongst kind of the bottom tier teams. I actually really like the talent on that roster. They got legitimate receivers with Garrett Wilson, AD Mitchell, who's got a ton of potential, really good separation. He just drops the ball too much. But they drafted Omar Cooper from Indiana in the late first round. They've got Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, their first round pick. They've got Mason Taylor as a solid tight end. Obviously, Breece Hall is one of the better running backs in the NFL. Their offensive line for a quote unquote bad team is actually pretty damn good. Like you don't see an offensive line with multiple first round picks. It's probably a top 15 to 16 O-line.
So there you go, Jason. Does hearing from Cleve there make you feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about the Jets? Or are you still skeptical?
No, it does make me feel a little warm and fuzzy about the Jets. You know, and a lot of these teams, especially these bottom feeding teams, I think Mike Florio said this week in terms of a power ranking, he's like, someone's going to end up 30, 31, and 32 at the end of the season. Who are those teams going to be? So as an AFC East fan, my entire life, it's just been so few and far between the years that the Jets have made any noise. But I do agree with Cleve. But I still remain very high on Malik Willis, and I believe head coach quarterback is important. And I like that combination down there in Miami. I think the roster is going to leave a lot to be desired, but it's not going to shock me if the Dolphins win 4 or 5 games, dare I say, and get in the way, become the fly in the ointment potentially in this contest here or there. But no, if you're asking me, I do think the Jets are going to have a better season than Miami.
So if you're just joining us, our full 30-plus minute interview with Cleave TA is going to be available immediately following this episode. So go ahead and refresh the stream on Twitter right after this, and that'll pop up. If you're watching on YouTube on our channel, you just got to pop over for a second, and that full thing will be available. He talks a little bit more about the Jets. One of the things I said to him in that interview is week 1, I really like the Titans because I like Robert Saleh in that spot. But Jason, it reminds me of like the first round of March Madness when there's like 2 schools that you really like and you're like, oh man, they could not run the table. They could be like a sweet 16 Cinderella, and they're playing each other in the first round. And you're like, I like them both. So now I can't bet it, right? That's kind of how I feel about the Titans and Jets. These are 2 teams that I personally think are going to be a little underrated. And I would love to take the Titans week 1, Robert Saleh revenge spot, as you already heard me say. I do think we're going to see a big leap from Cam Ward. I think Aaron Glenn is the worst NFL head coach. and you got Brian Dable on that sideline with Saleh as well. Huge coaching mismatch. But Cleve brings up a good point about that talent on the Jets roster, and I just don't know if I can pull the trigger. And by the way, Cleve will give you a strong opinion in that full 30-plus minute interview about whether he thinks you should take the Titans week 1 or not.
Breece Hall's availability will certainly play into that. And I will say, I totally agree with you about Aaron Glenn, but Frank Reich in the building does soften that a little bit for me, that he's handling that side of the ball. But yeah, that game probably scares me off like a 5-12 NCAA tournament game. That's a no for me, dog, in that spot. I just don't think I'd be able to put my balls on the table with Tennessee in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to one of our first episodes of the summer, and the Titans were one of my darlings, and I've just started to, not just because of what Cleve said, but, looking at that roster, I've started to kind of warm up to the Jets a little bit, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to put, one of my 10 entries on the Titans here in week 1. We'll see. Let's go ahead, Mike. I think we got one more clip from our interview with Cleve. Can you give us maybe one person in the awards market that you think people should maybe keep an eye on?
So Nico Collins, Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, I haven't checked recently, but I think you can get it at 40-1 or better. I have it at 50-1 when I released it. So I think it's down to like 30-1 in some spots. But once it was kind of established that MVP became quarterback driven, Offensive Player of the Year became skill position driven. So now it's like quarterbacks haven't won in a number of years. So it's really the best running back wide receiver award. And so, you should be identifying the best skill position players first. Like, I'm not going to go to any quarterbacks here.
Right.
But then I also, look at things like, all right, like the running back and wide receiver winners. Like, what are some common traits that they own or that they share? Running backs, the last 13 running back winners led the league in either rushing yards, rushing TDs, or both. There's only been 4 wide receiver winners, all in the last, number of years, or last 7 seasons. They all led the league in receiving yards, including JSN last year. So, clearly you have to have that upside to lead the league in either rushing or receiving. The last 16 winners made the playoffs, and their teams all won at least 10 games. And I think it was all the skill position players since 2000 have been age 28 or younger. So you're not looking at guys that are in their 30s, kind of on their last legs. Like, really stick to some of the younger guys. And then also little things like 12 straight winners they actually got 0 prior year votes, which is actually insane to me.
Wow.
17 straight skill position winners ranked inside the top 25 in yards per game, whether it be receiving or rushing. So no tight end has ever won, by the way. And I think Travis Kelce was the highest. He got 1 first place vote. I think he finished 4th or something.
I really like Cleave TA's approach of profiling who these award winners are. It reminds me a little bit, Jason, of the profiling that we did in a past episode of who is the team that gets upset in week 1. What does that team look like? What's their makeup? And he kind of took that approach with the awards market. So make sure as soon as this episode is over that you guys refresh the Twitter feed, head on over to YouTube, check out the full 30+ minute interview with Cleave TA. Lots of really good nuggets in it. Seriously, guys, you definitely don't want to miss that. And check out cleaveanalytics.com as well. Back-to-back years that he's come on, and it's been a banger of an episode, Jason.
So a couple things before we get out of here real quick. On the Nico Collins thing, I'm going to put you on the spot. Due to the Jaden Higgins injury, Tony, let's say you were going to tail Cleave TA and place a bet on Nico Collins. Does the Jaden Higgins injury make you more likely to place that bet? More footballs going his way, or more defensive attention give you pause?
That's a great question. I think you could make an argument either way. I think his volume's going to go up, and I think I like him even more now because of that injury. Because there's not a ton of weapons in that Texans offense. They got a couple, but I think it's gonna, it's gonna get some more targets here for him. So that would make me like it even more. Good question.
Anything else from you before I get us out of here?
A couple other quick things. Just a couple comments from folks. Jeff says Bucks week 1 against the Bengals. That would be a ballsy play. I like fading Zach Taylor week 1. I'll just say it. I don't have the balls to play that game. I might play it, on a spread bet. I don't have the balls to play that in Circa Survivor. But it's one of those where the Bucks are a middling team, as we talked about. If you can get by in week 1 using a middling team like the Bucks, I think you're in a pretty good place. Jason, I don't know if you saw Baker Mayfield's comments within the last 24 hours saying, I think we're going to surprise some people. People are expecting us to Jason Anik is expecting me to have a losing record.
Yep.
He essentially said, but he said he thinks they're going to surprise some people. Now, is that just a quarterback talking? And what else is he going to say? I think we're going to suck this year. No, but there did seem to be some conviction in his voice, and it doesn't move the needle for me. Like all of a sudden I'm going to take the Bucks week 1, but we'll see, Baker. We'll see if you can back it up, buddy.
So next week, we will not be coming at you Wednesday night. Probably going to do some shows Thursday, Friday, live from Radio Row, Circa Resort and Casino. Radio Row, I can't wait for the Ultimate Contest weekend. Appreciate everyone being with us here tonight as well. A lot of folks joining, tuning in, commenting. I'm going to get us out of here, Mr. Farmer, unless you got something else for me.
Nope. Good to go, brother.
Great stuff. Just follow us next week. We'll let you know when we're going to be coming at you. Thursday, Friday, lots of action. If you're in Vegas, come to Circa. Come say hello. For Mike Jones in the back and my man, Tony Farmer, my name's Jason Anik. We are the last men standing.